Why do they always come back after leaving you for someone else? Not when you're angry, not when you're proud, but in the silence, in the stillness of the man who walked away, without begging, without chasing, without trying to be seen. She thought another face could erase yours. She believed noise could bury presence. But what she never understood is this: your silence was never surrender. It was strength. The rare kind of strength that unsettles more than any speech, more than any desperate "I miss you." Because while most men collapse into reaction, the few who vanish into growth create something she cannot replicate. That absence becomes weight. That void becomes presence. And the more she tries to replace it, the louder it echoes. So let me ask you this. Drop a 1 if you still believe her new man can replace the atmosphere you brought. Drop a 2 if you know the truth. That presence like yours cannot be copied, no matter how many faces she cycles through. Like this video so other men can find it. Subscribe to Stoic Station for daily frameworks on silence, discipline, and sovereignty. Start this journey now, because in today's video, you're going to understand something deeper. Not just why she'll come back, but exactly what she'll feel the moment she realizes. You're no longer waiting. Let's dive in. Reason number 1. The replacement can't replace the feeling. She can swap the man, but she can't swap the atmosphere your presence created. That's the truth most men forget when they see their ex with someone new. You fear that her new guy means you've been erased, that everything you invested, everything you built together, somehow no longer matters. But brother, what you brought into her life was not just another body in the room. It was a presence, an energy, an atmosphere she cannot replicate no matter how many faces she cycles through. At first, new attention feels like Novocaine. It numbs, but it doesn't heal. The laughs may come easier, the conversations may feel lighter, but deep down, it's all distraction. Healing never happens through substitution. Healing comes from stillness, from sitting with the silence and facing the void. And that's the one thing she cannot do. When you withdrew, not with bitterness, not with noise, but with quiet strength, you became more than absent. You became unreachable, and that absence has weight. It presses on her more with each passing day. The silence you left behind begins to echo louder than any text she could post. Every scroll through old threads isn't a search for answers. It's a desperate attempt to feel something she can't recreate. Because the truth is simple. You were not just a man in her life. You were the atmosphere. You carried a stillness, a grounded presence that made her feel both exposed and safe. That cannot be swapped out like a shirt. That cannot be imitated by someone who doesn't know how to hold the center the way you did. And this is where your strength matters most. Detach with dignity. Go zero signal. No views, no likes, no subtle breadcrumbs to keep her comfortable in the illusion that you're still orbiting her world. For 21 days, give her nothing. Instead, reclaim that time and reinvest it into yourself, training your body, feeding your mind, and pouring your focus into one block of deep work daily. Because every ounce of energy you give to your growth makes the void she feels even clearer. Replacement delays emptiness. Your calm makes it undeniable. She thought a new man would cover the silence, but silence doesn't fade, it amplifies. And the longer you stay gone, the louder it becomes. She may distract herself for now, but distraction always collapses, which raises the bigger question. If a replacement can't fill the void, what happens when her fantasy collides with the weight of reality? That's where the cracks begin, and that's where we go next. Reason number 2. Her fantasy cracks under reality. Filters perform, character endures. That's the line you need to remember every time you see her smiling in pictures with someone new, bathed in sunset light, pretending the past never touched her. You imagine her new world is perfect, and that thought cuts deep. But what looks flawless on the surface is often fragile underneath. A fresh start without inner work is just the same story retold in a different setting, and sooner or later the cracks always show. She can dress it up with polished photos, curated dates, and captions that scream happiness. But life isn't built in filters. Old fears, old habits, and old emotional patterns have a way of seeping back in, no matter how carefully they're hidden. The truth is, she didn't transform into someone new. She simply carried the same self into a different chapter, and when the gloss wears off, she'll notice the same shadows trailing her. The high of new affection dips fast the first time she feels unseen, unheard, or mishandled. That's when memory creeps in, the memory of how you listened, how you carried silence without needing to fix it, how your presence was steady instead of shallow. She may not say it out loud, but the comparison is happening in her mind, and the new reality doesn't measure up. Because what she once had with you wasn't just noise, it was a standard she can't unknow, no matter how she tries to replace it. This is where your response matters most. Don't chase, don't perform, and don't prove. Instead, become the quiet standard she measures others against. Compose yourself. Train your body until strength becomes your posture. Protect your sleep so your mind sharpens. And practice a daily reality audit. Ask yourself, what's true? What's controllable? What's my next move? By doing this, you anchor yourself in reality, while her fantasy struggles to survive its own illusions. Your grounded reality will always outlive her curated fantasy. And the longer you live in that calm, disciplined center, the more obvious the contrast becomes, not just to her, but to you. What looks effortless on her feed is built on avoidance, but what you are building is forged in substance. And substance always wins over spectacle. But here's the twist. When her fantasy finally breaks, she won't admit it. She'll expect your chaos to rush in and rescue her. She'll expect the storm she thought you'd bring when she left. But this time, you won't give her that. Because silence and discipline cut deeper than drama ever could. And that's exactly where we go next. Reason number 3. She expected drama. You delivered discipline. She prepared for your storm, but you answered with still water. When she walked away, she didn't just expect you to feel the loss, she expected you to broadcast it. Most men plead, bargain, explode, and beg their way back into a woman's attention. And because that's the predictable pattern, she assumed you would fall right into it. She anticipated the midnight texts, the apology paragraphs, and the desperate attempts to prove your worth. She thought she knew the script. But instead, you tore up the script entirely. Rather than collapsing, you chose structure. Instead of giving her the chaos she could control, you gave her the discipline she couldn't explain. While she waited for weakness, you built order. Gym sessions at sunrise, work handled with clarity, your days framed by routine instead of reaction. She thought she'd see the version of you unraveling, yet what she witnessed was the man who recalibrated. And that calm unsettles her more than any confrontation ever could, because silence with strength doesn't scream, it lingers. It leaves her wondering, why didn't he react the way I thought he would? Why isn't he breaking like the others? She doesn't realize that this is no act, no strategy. It's discipline. It's the decision to rise when most men fall. The way forward is simple but powerful. Commit to 30 days of monk mode. Fix your wake-up time. Set a training plan and follow it with intensity. Write down 3 must-do tasks each day and complete them without compromise. Spend your first hour offline, grounded in your own presence before the world intrudes. And above all, no DM relapses. No breaking silence just to remind her you still exist. Because every day you hold the line, you build something greater than her approval. You build yourself. Discipline reframes you from needy to necessary. It shifts her perception from "he couldn't survive without me" to "he became even stronger because of me." And whether she admits it or not, that realization plants itself in her mind. It haunts her in quiet moments, because the man she thought she left behind no longer exists. And when your discipline holds, you stop being a fallback. You stop being the one she expects to orbit her world. Instead, you become the mirror she avoids, the reflection she's not ready to face. And that's where the story turns. Because the harder she tries to run from that mirror, the clearer it follows her. Reason number 4, not a backup, but a lesson. The harder she runs from reflection, the faster it catches up. You may think she's ignoring you, but the truth is, she's not dodging you. She's dodging herself. When you chose not to react, not to chase, not to collapse into the pattern she expected, you forced an internal review she wasn't ready to face. Because silence isn't just empty space. It's a mirror, and that mirror doesn't lie. Distraction can delay the truth, but truth doesn't expire. She can fill her calendar with nights out, with laughter too loud to be real, with someone else's attention to mask the ache. But the triggers remain. A song comes on the radio and her stomach knots. She passes a place you once walked together and her thoughts betray her. A simple phrase, a scent, a memory. It reopens the same page she's been trying to rip out of the book. And no matter how she tries to bury it, she can't change the fact that your stillness has become a standard she can't escape. This is where your growth becomes vital. Let the mirror do its job. Don't rush to clarify. Don't fight to explain. Instead, turn the reflection on yourself. Journal one hard truth per day. What did I tolerate that I will never tolerate again? Where did I compromise my standards? How will I enforce my boundaries from this day forward? And then live those answers. When your actions rise from clarity, not craving, you stop being a character in her story and return to being the author of your own. Slowly, she begins to acknowledge what she lost. Not publicly, not in words she'll ever send you, but in the way her mind circles back to you when the distractions fade. In the way the quiet moments remind her not of who you were, but of who she couldn't handle when you stood tall in silence. You're not her backup plan. You're the lesson she avoids, because looking straight at it would mean admitting the mistake was hers. And this is the paradox. The less you seek validation, the more undeniable your value becomes. While she performs fine on the surface, you no longer perform at all. You build, you grow, you practice peace beneath your own surface, and the contrast couldn't be clearer, which leads us to the next truth. While she pretends happiness, what you're building is something much stronger. Reason number 5. Her show versus your peace. Loud joy is often camouflage. Quiet joy is often earned. That's why you can't mistake her curated posts for genuine progress. What you're seeing isn't healing, it's theater. Performance always requires an audience, but peace doesn't. Peace doesn't ask for approval, it doesn't need applause, and it doesn't beg to be seen. It simply is. And that's the very difference between her path and yours. She chases optics, perfect smiles for the camera, exaggerated laughter for the crowd, and endless motion to avoid stillness. It looks convincing, but deep down, even she knows it's a show. You, on the other hand, build architecture, the body you strengthen, the mind you sharpen, and the schedule you refine each day. That foundation is invisible to others, but it's the very thing that carries you when the noise fades. And here's the paradox. The more you stabilize, the more exhausting her performance becomes. The very thing she thought would free her starts to drain her. Because pretending to be happy is work. But becoming peaceful, that's growth. That's permanence. You're not chasing an image, you're laying bricks. While she posts, you progress. While she distracts, you discipline. Every choice you make in silence widens the gap between the life she shows and the life you live. So build your peace stack and track it, not her. Begin with 5 minutes of morning breathwork to set your tone. Follow with 45 to 60 minutes of strength training to anchor your body. Dedicate a single-task sprint of 90 minutes to your most important work without distraction. And finish with a 15-minute evening walk, letting your mind clear while the world winds down. Repeat this rhythm daily until it stops feeling like effort and becomes your nature. Because here's the truth: peace compounds, performance collapses. One is rooted in reality, the other in illusion, and in the long run, reality always wins. You don't need to perform to prove you're okay. You practice peace until peace becomes who you are. And the more you lean into that stillness, the more unsettling it becomes for her. The quieter you get, the louder her doubts become. She begins to wonder what your silence really means, and that uncertainty is something she can't escape, which leads us to the next reality. The deeper you detach, the more her mind turns back toward you. Reason number 6. Silence plants. Doubt. Real detachment doesn't taunt, it disappears. That's what makes it powerful. The temptation is always there to prove you've moved on, to leave a trace so she knows you're fine. But brother, that's not detachment. That's still orbiting her world, still asking for her to notice. True detachment is different. It's quiet. It's final. It doesn't announce itself. It simply exists. She expected your silence to be temporary, a tactic you'd drop the moment emotions boiled over. But your consistency tells a story she didn't anticipate. No signals, no slips, no cracks, just stillness. And the longer that stillness holds, the heavier it feels on her end. Because silence doesn't fade, it compounds. At first, she brushes it off. Then she starts to notice the absence. And soon, doubt begins to creep in, not on your side, but on hers. That's the shift. Doubt inverts. No longer are you the one questioning if you mattered. Now she's the one replaying the story in her head. Did she misread you? Did she actually matter as much as she believed? Or was she wrong about the power she thought she had? That uncertainty unsettles her more than any words you could have spoken. This is why you need structure. Follow what I call the digital clean break protocol. Unfollow without malice. Mute the mutual bait that pulls you back into her orbit. Delete the drafts you're tempted to send in weak moments. And every time your reflex reaches for her page, replace it with a preset action. Drink a glass of water, drop for 10 push-ups, or take a single deep breath and whisper to yourself, in through the nose, own the frame. Over time, this ritual rewires your instincts. Instead of feeding attachment, you're building sovereignty. And here's the paradox. The more absent you become, the more present you feel in her mind. Your absence stops being empty space and transforms into a presence she can't ignore. She doesn't see you, she doesn't hear you, but she feels you, because the silence you left behind demands to be felt. When doubt reaches its peak, contact often follows. She'll reach out not from strength, but from curiosity, from the need to test if she still matters. But here's the truth. It isn't what you think, and that's exactly where we go next. Reason number 7. Her return isn't what you think. A simple hey is not a vow, it's a probe. Too many men mistake curiosity for commitment, as if her reaching out means the story has been rewritten and the ending is different this time. But her return rarely carries the weight you imagine. More often, it's not about love at all. It's about control, validation, or tidy closure. The kind of closure that still keeps her in the center of your attention. She wants to know if you're still orbiting her world, if the man who didn't beg is still listening, if the silence that unsettled her was genuine strength or just a waiting game. That's the test. Was your silence discipline, or was it disguise? The answer isn't in what you tell yourself. It's in how you respond when she finally shows up again. This is where many men stumble. One over-eager reply, one rushed attempt to reopen the connection, and suddenly you're back in the same loop you fought so hard to escape. You replay the same emotions, the same frustrations, the same imbalance of power. And the cycle continues, not because you didn't know better, but because you didn't stand firm when it counted most. The solution is equanimity, calm strength that neither overreacts nor pretends indifference. Your words don't need to be long or dramatic. They need to be clear, steady, and rooted. You can use what I call the equanimity script. Short, neutral, boundary-clear responses that reveal you've grown. If she reaches out, you can say, "Hope you're well. I'm focused on some things right now, not available to revisit the past." If she presses further, stay grounded. "I wish you clarity. I have mine." These aren't walls, they're boundaries. They don't reject with cruelty, but they also don't reopen the door she once walked out of. By responding this way, you confirm your growth without theater. You show that her presence no longer dictates your peace, and that realization will strike deeper than any silence you've given before. Because it reveals that while she was wondering if you'd been waiting, you were actually moving. And once you pass that test, something greater happens. You no longer crave her words. You stop longing for her validation. You outgrow the man who once needed her to define his worth, which leads us directly to the next truth. The strongest version of you is born when you no longer recognize yourself in the man who used to wait. Reason number 8. You outgrew the old you. Closure never comes from the person who broke your frame. That's a hard truth many men resist, hoping that one day she'll explain, apologize, or finally admit she was wrong. You kept waiting for her to say something that pain had already taught you. But the real turning point didn't come from her words. It came from your own decision to stop needing her permission to heal. The old you begged for reassurance, hoping she'd validate your worth and make the ache disappear. But the new you understands something deeper. Release is more powerful than reassurance. Because even if she returned with the perfect apology, even if she said every word you once longed to hear, it still couldn't deliver the peace you've built for yourself in her absence. Words can't create what your own discipline already forged. This is why you shifted from waiting to acting. Instead of replaying the past, you began creating rituals that set you free. One of the most powerful is the letter unsent ritual. Write down everything you wanted to tell her, every frustration, every unspoken truth, and then burn it. Watch the smoke rise and let it carry the weight with it. After that, write your non-negotiables list, your values, your standards, your boundaries. Keep it visible, because it's not just a list, it's a contract with yourself. From this point forward, you live by it. By doing this, you stop ruminating about what was and start orienting yourself toward what will be. You no longer define yourself by her silence or her explanations. You define yourself by the clarity you chose in the aftermath. That's the essence of growth, when the man who once begged is unrecognizable in the man who now walks forward with calm conviction. And here's the shift that changes everything. At this stage, you no longer need to speak your change. You don't post it, you don't perform it, you don't try to prove it. You embody it. You live it in the choices you make daily. And that kind of transformation doesn't just alter how she sees you, it alters how you see yourself. Which brings us to the next truth. When you stop explaining and start embodying, Mystery itself becomes your message. Reason number 9. Mystery speaks louder than proof. Power that isn't broadcast gets felt, not seen. That's why the loudest transformations are often the weakest, because announcing growth leaks the very energy you need to keep. The man who constantly signals his progress, posting, proving, performing, ends up empty. But the man who stacks his health, his skills, and his mission in silence creates something she can't decode. When you stop signaling, you become unreadable, and that unreadability rewires the entire dynamic. She once thought she could read you like a script, knowing when you'd reach out, when you'd stumble, when you'd break. But now, nothing. No posts, no flex, no breadcrumbs, just stillness backed by progress. That uncertainty lingers in her mind, and the longer it lasts, the more powerful it becomes. In a world addicted to noise, your silence dominates the room. It says more than any speech, because it leaves space for imagination, and imagination always exaggerates what it can't confirm. While she wonders, you continue building privately. One powerful way to anchor this is through a private wins log. Write down your daily victories, no matter how small. Then every quarter, review it. Not for the world, but for yourself. You don't need applause, you just need truth. And that's the point. Mystery is not a tactic, it's the byproduct of integrity. You're not hiding, you're living aligned. And the deeper your integrity runs, the clearer the next truth becomes. The man you are now wouldn't choose the woman who once walked away. And that realization is what truly sets you free. Reason number 10. You'd never choose her again. Not vengeance, standards. That's the difference between the man you once were and the man you are now. Back then, you chased being chosen. You handed over your peace in exchange for a place in her story, believing her validation would confirm your worth. But peace borrowed is peace lost, and every time you made her opinion your anchor, you drifted further from yourself. Now, after rebuilding piece by piece, you've found something stronger than validation. You've found value without mirrors. You don't need her reflection to remind you who you are. Your body carries discipline, your mind carries clarity, your days carry structure. And when you stand in that kind of alignment, you understand that no chemistry, no nostalgia, no flicker of old fire is worth downgrading your standards for. This is the trap. Familiar chemistry tempts you to reopen old doors. It whispers that maybe this time will be different, but returning to chaos is the most expensive relapse. Every lesson you bled for becomes wasted the moment you trade peace for the thrill of being wanted again. So you gate your life by alignment. Clarity first, consistency second, character always. If any are missing, the door stays closed. To protect that standard, you practice the 24-hour rule. Sleep once before you reply, so impulse never outruns wisdom. That pause is where your power lives, because you are no longer the man waiting to be chosen. You are the destination now, and anyone who walks beside you must bring calm, not commotion, depth, not drama, purpose, not performance. That isn't arrogance, it's alignment. It's the quiet knowing that the man you've become would never choose the woman who once cost you your peace. And that truth, brother, is freedom. The journey ends with this truth. The man you are today wouldn't choose her again, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Each stage, from silence to discipline, from peace to mystery, has stripped away the old frame and revealed a new one. The paradox remains: the less you perform, the more you are felt. She may come back when her fantasy breaks, when your calm unsettles her, when your absence becomes louder than presence. But by then, you won't be waiting. You'll have already outgrown the man who once needed her to complete him. You've built this version of yourself rep by rep, page by page, breath by breath. And now the standard has shifted. You no longer chase being chosen. You are the choice. You are the destination. If this spoke to you, anchor it now. Like so other men searching for strength can find it. Subscribe to Stoic Station for daily reminders that silence, discipline, and sovereignty are your true weapons. And tell me in the comments, which part of this journey hit you hardest? The void, the discipline, the mystery, or the clarity that you'd never choose her again? I'll see you in the next video, where we break down exactly how to hold frame when she reaches out first, and how to protect the peace you fought so hard to build.